Good afternoon, everyone. Please confirm you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Oh, good morning. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay, great. Thank you. I think we have about 19 people now. We have about 19 participants. Let's allow for additional 2 minutes and we can start. Okay, I guess we can start now. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to our webinar. My name is Uchenna Okafo and I am the moderator for today's session. Our topic of discussion today is employee retention and succession planning. This is one topic that couldn't be more relevant in this time, right? As we may all know, in Nigeria, and across Africa today, organizations and HR professionals are facing some major challenges, while also trying to answer some big questions, like how do we keep our best talent, and also how do we prepare our next generation of leaders and successors. A lot of these challenges usually are caused by so many real world issues like economic instability, high employee turnover, brain drain, limited career growth opportunities, and in many cases, the absence of structured succession plan. It's no surprise why we have a very few second generation businesses making it past the founder. That said, in our conversation today, we will be going beyond simply just talking about the problem, but also diving into practical strategies for retaining top talent and building strong succession plans that will sustain our organization for the future. But before we go into our conversation, I would like to give a quick brief about Human Capital Partners and what we do. We are an HR consulting firm offering end-to-end solution across the entire HR value chain, from advisory to learning and development, recruitment and executive search. And we have deep expertise in particularly the topic of discussion today. Formerly part of KPMG Nigeria Executive Selection and Training Services. We broke out of KPMG and became independent in 2021. We are partners with TTRO and Artplay in West Africa to deliver transformative learning experiences and innovative assessment tools HCP is a member of the International People Service Network and is registered with CIPM, NITAD, and CMD. You'll be learning or you'll be hearing a lot more about our offerings at the end of the session. So before we start, I want to give some ground rules, right? For comments, for your thoughts, please ensure that you make use of the chat box, right? And for questions, if you have any questions, please make use of the Q&A slots so we can address them at the appropriate time. And then lastly, please, I want us to really be fully present and also engaged. Also, this is how our panel, our session, or rather our webinar is going to go this morning. First of all, we're going to have introduction of the topic. We're going to have a panel introduction. We'll have our first discussion. Then we'll have an interactive poll, which will be put up for everybody to be a part of. And then we move on to our second panel discussion. We will take questions and then announce the poll results, and then we'll wrap up. So give and take, we should be done, say in an hour, 30 minutes max, right? So at this point, I would like to introduce our panelists and subject matter experts. Our first panelist that will be handling the topic that we are discussing today is Innocent Oseye. Innocent Oseye is a seasoned HR consultant with nearly 30 years of experience across industries, including oil and gas, manufacturing, telecommunications, financial services, and professional services, with expertise in HR strategy, recruitment performance management, succession management, organizational development, and change management. He has also held senior leadership roles in KPMG, Business Consultants and Managers Limited, as well as Strategic Result Consulting. And he is currently the managing partner at Human Capital Partners. He is a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. He served on its governing body, its governing council as a chair of the Professional Development Committee. He is a faculty member at Lagos Business School and CIPM, a recipient of the Africa Prize for Leadership Excellence in 2017, and a member of the international professional bodies, including SHRM and STD. Please welcome our first panelist, Innocent Oseye. We move on to our second panelist. Our second panelist that will be discussing some of the topic we're going to be having today is Chinedu Nwaguma. Chinedu is an accomplished HR and management consulting professional with over 20 years of experience across Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe, and Middle East. He holds degrees in sociology and anthropology, an MBA and certification in an MBTI professional and international trainer. He has held senior roles at Human Capital Partners, Deloitte, Cadbury, KPMG, and Unilever, delivering expertise in HR strategy, talent management, organizational development, succession planning, and strategic HR support across sectors such as manufacturing, telecom, oil and gas, financial service, and public institution. He's a member of the CIPM and NITAD. He is recognized for designing and implementing assessment and development centers and for the leading impactful change and talent initiative in both consulting and corporate environments. Ladies and gentlemen, you have your panelists. Please, let's welcome them. Okay, so at this point, we're going to be having, so let me also address how the session is going to go, the question and answer session will go rather. We'll be having 3 rounds of questions for each panelist for the 2 panel sessions. And we are hoping that by the time we are done, we would have answered all the questions that you may have. So please, let's sit back, let's relax, have your writing pads, and please enjoy the session. So we are diving right into our discussion for today. And our first question is going to Innocent. Innocent, can you hear me? Please confirm you
Yes,
can hear.
yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so the question is, in today's competitive market, companies talk about succession planning, but many still treat it as a box ticking exercise. From your experience, what does real succession planning look like, and how can it directly influence talent retention?
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the discussion today. Going straight to the questions that you've asked, succession planning is the strategic process of identifying and developing internal people with the potential to fill key positions, key leadership positions, or critical roles within the organization in the future. So in Nigeria, where many businesses still have, they still heavily depend on individual founders or key staff, succession planning signals to the employees that there is room for growth. So it helps to build trust, it helps to build loyalty, it helps to build motivation. It helps to help people see that there is a future around this organization and we are all being considered as part of that future. So when people see a clear path to advancements, a lot of time they are more likely to stay and they are more likely to contribute meaningfully, knowing their efforts will lead to real opportunities for them. So in a nutshell, this is how I would like to describe succession planning in organizations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Innocent, for that great introduction. And also for stressing that true succession planning is actually more than just a checklist, but a strategic process. And if you have to develop your internal key talent, um, you have to ensure that they are part of the organization, or that you take their career development seriously. Where businesses rely heavily on founders as key staff, it shows that employees that it actually shows employees that they can grow, which builds, at the end of the day, builds trust. It keeps them motivated and makes them more likely to stay. Thank you so much for that. Our next question goes to Chinedu. Chinedu, beyond the obvious factors like pay or career growth, what do you think is really driving employees' exit in Nigeria right now?
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Uche, for having me, and thanks everyone for joining us. Please confirm you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, fantastic, and thanks for that question. So the way we can look at this, I mean, you could categorize that into two broad buckets. There, like you noted, there is the obvious bucket of issues like salary, for example, and in more recent times, relocation, what is popularly called the Japa syndrome. Okay. But however, beyond these more obvious factors, there is a second bucket of factors that are not so obvious. And to my mind, these are actually the more deeper issues. Issues ranging from, for example, employees feeling undervalued or feeling stuck, in a position or in their careers. And you see these things manifest in such issues such as a lack of career growth, for example. And if you go beyond that, you may also begin to look at things like a toxic work culture, okay, where you see various manifestations in terms of poor leadership style, for example, a lack of recognition, for example. You also begin to see people feeling a sense of being micromanaged. All of these things are also factors that may contribute to increased exits. And if you go beyond that as well, you may begin to talk about things like work-life imbalance, essentially, where you don't have that balance between work and life, and especially in our big cities. So speaking specifically to our reality, in Nigeria. And then other things you may also, or other factors and variables may also include issues like a lack of trust in leadership. These are, key, deeper, not so obvious reasons why you may experience increased, heightened employee exits in organizations. And I think that at the end of the day, it is important to note, okay, that beyond money is, exits would typically go beyond money. In my experience, it comes down to, issues such as impact, okay, where people feel valued and they are contributing and making impact. They are more likely to stay. Okay, beyond impact, you talk about things like perhaps where they feel respected, they see opportunities for growth, and ultimately it's about, meaning for them. So those would be like my initial thoughts around the questions you asked. Thank you.
Okay, that's very insightful, Chinedu. Thank you so much. Really practical insights. Some of the key points that you have noted is that many exits or resignation usually stem from employee feeling undervalued, lack of career growth, toxic work culture, poor work-life balance, micromanagement, right? And low trust in leadership. And therefore, what you're trying to tell, most of us, I'm sure most of us here are HR professionals. You're trying to let us know that there must be emphasis, on retention that focuses on meaning, right? Meaning, respect, and growth, and not just money. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chinedu, for that. Our next question is going to Innocent. Innocent, with some of these challenges that Chinedu had mentioned, right? How can organization engage and reward top talent even when budgets are really, really, really tight?
Okay, thank you very much. If I understand you well, you're asking me how do you balance between budgets with the need to reward and engage top talent?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's a common challenge, especially for small and medium-scale enterprises. But talent engagement does not always require very big budget. Yeah, except in this country where everything must be bought with money. But I mean, in the bigger ecosystem, it's a common challenge. I mean, but talent engagement doesn't always require big budget. For instance, you can provide a good working environment that is less toxic. Is one of those things that would help, that can take care of where you don't have deep pockets to be able to pay salaries. I mean, to be able to deep pockets to be able to meet expectations. Offer learning opportunities. Many employees value training or mentorship. See, an organization can also do flexible working arrangements where it is feasible, because this can improve morale very significantly. We also see situations where where you need to, we advise organizations to also ensure they put in place very good performance and recognition system. See, you need to be able to acknowledge wins publicly, and this fosters a sense of value for individuals. Tying pay to performance where extra efforts are recognized and rewarded in terms of performance incentives, they are also very important anyway. And of course, provide clear growth path for people. Clear growth path, which also would affect ensuring that you have good succession plans in place. Showing employees a future that keeps them engaged, even in lean time, is extremely important. So, I mean, in a nutshell, it's just about value perception. It is not just compensation alone. I have seen organizations, for instance, where the organization was going through a very rough time, but all staff members stood by their MD. The only thing they ask him to do for them, is that please just help us give us enough money to enable us transport ourselves from home to the office. for the time being. Why? Because when this company was doing extremely well, I mean, the company, I mean, we all enjoyed it. And even in very difficult time, the company was able to, I mean, the company was able to keep staff motivated until the company bounced back. So many things. So it's about value perception from the part of the employees, not just compensation alone. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Innocent. And I truly, truly align with you, honestly, because really, everything really doesn't boil down to, having big budgets or spending, before you can make your employees feel valued. And some of the things that you have highlighted is, ensuring that you have a good work environment, creates learning opportunities, make, the workplace flexible, enough. Give public recognition rather, ensure that their little wins are recognized, set a clear career path or growth path for them in the organization. That will be really, really highly effective. The key thing is not really, like I said earlier, not just about making budgets or thinking that everything is actually about the money, right? But really is about a strong perception of value beyond, just pay. Thank you so much for that, Innocent. Our next question goes to Chinedu, and it says, how can Nigerian company compete with tempting global offer and keep their best people?
All right, that's a very interesting question, and thanks for bringing that up. We've made the point so far that it's really not about money, and where I left off, I said it was really about what impact and other things, not money. And the truth of the matter is, look, there is no way Nigerian businesses, at least given today's realities, can compete with those international tempting offers, quoting you. And the reason for this, or the reasons for this are not far-fetched. If you look at our current macroeconomic reality, for example, we have big, macroeconomic headwinds. And if I drill down specifically to, what is impacting us as, particularly in terms of this topic and as HR professionals, issues around devaluation of our currency, exchange rate issues make it almost impossible for us to compete on the basis of remuneration or pay. And therefore, that cannot be, a value proposition, particularly when you compare against those international businesses. But however, there are other factors, there are other platforms we can compete on. If you like, you could call it your areas of strength that you can project as an employer, as a value proposition, as a business to your people. And one of the biggest platform of variable would be what I call impact, or some people would refer to as purpose. Employees, people want to know that they matter, what they do matter. They can see real-time impact, results, outcomes, what they do. And so that's a very important platform, to base value on in terms of keeping your top talent. You may also begin to look at things like visibility. Do you give your top talents, your people, do you give them the space to self-express? Okay. Are they visible? Are they learning? Are they growing? Innocent alluded to that earlier. Okay. In my experience as well, visibility is quite important. Stretch assignments, impactful projects, business critical initiatives, are they leading it? Sometimes these things are far more important, in talent scale of preference, than money. If I come down specifically as well to the Nigerian experience or the African experience, culture, organizational culture is also critical. Okay, more often than not, local opportunities and jobs with very good, accommodating, open culture, friendly, would be far more important to a staff, to an employee, than, say, an international job, with toxic culture. And then finally, that is not to say as well that money is not important. You can offer incentives, longer term incentives, opportunities to be part owners of the business. This may not vest immediately, but there's long-term commitments, and they see growth trajectory, and they know they are part of it, and that can also enable, if you like, the sense of ownership in that business. And so I guess the point I'm making really is that it would be critical to begin to sort of engage your talent quite early, so they know that they are part of the bigger picture. Okay, and they feel that sense of importance, they feel that sense of relevance. Once we are able to drive that and build our value proposition around these elements, then we're on our way to actually building a very structured and stable succession management environment for our businesses.
Thank you so much, Chinedu, for that response. An important point to note from everything you said is that while local organizations may not match international salaries due to economic instability, just like you alluded to, they can compete through, purpose, showing employees that they matter, creating that visibility for them. Are they growing? Really, are they growing? And also, allow them lead, impactful projects, right? Create a positive organizational culture, and, long-term incentives, like making them feel like they're part owners, of the business. So essentially or crucially, the most important thing to note is that, you must first of all engage your top talents early, really, before they start looking elsewhere. Thank you so much, Chinedu, for that feedback. Our next question, it goes to Innocent, and it is, what specific strategies can you personally see work in retaining high performers, even in tough markets?
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Good question. The most successful organizations that we have worked for, or we have worked with in the past, they implement what we call the high performance retention playbook. And this has worked well for them, and it is working well for them. It combines 10 strategies in an integrated talent management approach, ensuring that there is consistency in application, monitoring by HR and leadership at the same time. And I will just quickly give high level, talk about these 10 strategies and give high level summaries about them. Number one is competitive and differential rewards. High performers expect that their contributions be recognized in ways that reflect their value. And that is one of the most important things when we're talking about high performance. See, they want performance-linked pay. They want differential bonus pool. They also use the long-term incentives, things like, giving stock options, profit sharing, deferred compensation plans, and all that. Special recognition awards, which sometimes are done quarterly or done annually. I remember when I was in one of the organizations, one of the manufacturing organizations, bonuses are shared every quarter. If you don't meet the performance, the agreed performance goals per quarter, you will not earn the bonus that is associated with that quarter. So everybody work themselves out. Even when there is industrial unrest, staff will go into the organization through the back door, and that happens. So competitive and differential pay rewards would help us to retain high performance. Number two, provide clear clear career growth and development pathways. You see, retention of top talent hinges on opportunities to grow. You see, individual career development plans must be in place that creates tailored pathways for skills growth and, of course, leadership readiness. You also need to put in place the fast track performance. Offer accelerated promotion or stretch assignments to keep them engaged. We're talking about high performance now, because you see, your high performance, every recruiter in that region is going after them. See? So cross-functional projects, you may want to bring them on cross-functional projects for exposure to different business areas to broaden their skills acquisition. You may also want to, if you have the opportunity, if an organization is well enabled, you can consider global assignments or secondments for them. That is providing clear career growth and development pathways. The third thing is empowerment and autonomy. High performance thrive when trusted with meaningful responsibilities. And this includes decision-making authority, giving them the space to make and implement decisions without being micromanaged, just like Chinedu alluded to. Ownership of high-impact projects. We assign them initiatives that are visible to the top leadership. They love that. Number three, innovation freedom. Provide resources and time that will enable them to explore new ideas of business solutions. That's number three, empowerment and autonomy. Now, we're talking about purpose and alignment with organizational vision. Retention is stronger when high performance connect with work. They connect with work, and they connect their own work to a larger purpose. For instance, now, what does this mean? We need to communicate strategic impact, show how their work directly supports the organization's goals. People stay where their personal values match the company's values as well. So there is a need to regularly reinforce the company's mission and recognize those who embody it. Extremely important. The other thing is that we need to invest in strategic planning. Invest in strategic planning, and not only that, invite them, your high flyers, to contribute ideas during strategy sessions. High performance don't stay for perks alone, they stay for purpose, and they stay where they see meaningful progress being made. And that is one thing about them. The fifth strategy that we've worked with clients to deploy is also work-life balance and well-being. High performance often risks burnout. Retention requires addressing this. It's extremely important. So just like Chinedu said, flexible work arrangements, sabbatical opportunities may also be explored. Wellness programs may also be explored within the organization. And the sixth point that we're talking about is inclusive and supportive leadership. Retain high performance, the quality of your supervisors, the quality of your managers, the quality of senior leadership that is managing them is one of the biggest retention factors for them. See, you need to build trust, give them responsibility and autonomy. You need to challenge them, because high performers want to be stretched and they want to be seen. You need to invest in their growth, pay for courses, give them mentors that they can work with. They need coaching and mentoring. Match high performance with senior leaders for continuous guidance. And of course, you can also think about the feedback culture. What's your feedback culture in your organization? See, do we give feedback that kills people's morale completely, or we give feedback in such a way that we can help them understand the issues and they can come out better? So provide timely feedback, constructive feedback that affirms strength and addresses gaps in the lives of these individuals. And of course, psychological safety. We need to create an environment where they see the ideas. They see, where they can see and they can voice their own ideas and concerns without fear of being reprimanded. That is extremely important. The other thing we also see working in some of the organizations working for is regular talent engagement and retention checks. Don't wait for resignation letters before you begin to act. Check in regularly. what's going on, not just appraisals, real conversations about goals and challenges. You need to stay interviews also needs to happen, quarterly or biannual conversations focused on what will keep you engaged. 3, pulse surveys is also important, short, frequent surveys that help to capture their sentiments and, of course, their engagement level is extremely important. We also need to from time to time, exit intent monitoring is also very, very important. Early detection systems to spot signs of disengagement. There's no way staff may want to leave that there is supervisors around them would not know that there is something that is going on in the mind of this individual and they may be leaving very soon. So early engagement may help to be able to pause that move if possible, if we can handle that. So that's that around regular talent engagement and retention checks. And of course, the 8th one is non-financial recognition. Sometimes symbolic gestures mean more than monetary ones. So we're talking about personalized recognition, handwritten notes from the CEO, lunch with senior leadership, spotlight opportunities, speaking at conferences, representing companies at industry events, very, very important, celebrating personal milestones, birthdays, working anniversaries, achievements outside work. These are all the things that we can use to retain high performance talent. And number 9, first session opportunities. If they don't see the future, they will look elsewhere. It's just as simple as that. So there must be transparent promotion criteria. Which roles are vacancy dependent? Which roles are competency dependent? Which roles are both vacancy and competency independent? And of course, people who must understand what they need to do to be able to get into higher roles within the organization. There must be role shadowing, allow them to work alongside with executives to prepare for higher responsibilities. There may also be need for visible pipeline positioning, which communicates when they are in line for future leadership roles. It's not when somebody has submitted his letter that we start telling him that, don't you know that you're in succession pool? See, at that point in time, the person has already made up his mind and is leaving. So those are some of the things. And the last, but not the least, is proactive retention risk management. What do I mean by this? Market benchmarking, prevent poaching before it happens, where you have the capacity to be able to do so. Market benchmarking, regularly review compensation against your competitors, and of course, retention bonus for critical roles, especially for hard to replace skill set. And you can also do what we call counter offer preparedness. Have a quick response plans for unexpected resignations and notices, which you can use to counter offers if you can. But however, you must always ensure that at least you are close to what your industry offers your people. And these are not the 10 key things that I would advise. I would advise that we've seen this work for a number of the organizations we currently work for, and that's why I'm also recommending these 10 keys to retaining high performance in an organization. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was a lot. Thank you so much, Innocent, for that insightful piece. Please, I hope we are all taking notes. Some of the things you mentioned, which I noted, and I believe that we all have been taking notes as well. You mentioned that retention of high performance most times hinges on trust, ensuring regular check-ins, ensuring that there's growth opportunities, value alignment, and ensure that the work is challenging enough, bring them on cross-functional projects, allow them be part of decision making, empowerment, autonomy should be, the goal for the organization. Create wellness programs, ensure that those people that you are hoping would be successors or that will take over key positions, have proper coaching and mentoring. Ensure that the work environment encourages, proper feedback and culture where their voices or their concerns, can be voiced without any bias or victimization. Also grant role shadowing, where those people you're also trying to ensure that, they take over key positions, can begin to learn from people that are already occupying the position. Then also, lastly, you mentioned market benchmarking. You don't want to hire people and then other competitors, are taking them away from you. Ensure that you review your compensation to benchmark industry offer. Thank you so much, Mr. Innocent, for that. Our next question goes to Chinedu. And again, just to wrap up, how can HR and leadership work together so retention and succession plan can become a shared responsibility?
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that question. That is perhaps a very critical question, to address. And look, if you talk to business leaders today, I mean, most business leaders will tell you, perhaps one of, if not the biggest challenge they have today is retention. Okay, and so this is a live business issue. And of course, remit is HR. But however, the business of retention, the business of succession management is not just an HR matter. In my experience, this ought to be in fact, it is a business-specific concern. And therefore, it must be driven as a top agenda of the business. And so it is important that as HR professionals, we are mainstreaming retention, we are mainstreaming succession management. And for us to be able to do that properly as HR people, first step, we must understand our business. So a lot of HR people run away from that. There's been the age-long question and issue. Oh, hi, HR is not at the table. There is no way you can be at the table if you do not understand your business. And if you do not understand your business, there is no way you can mainstream retention and succession. Okay, that's critical. That's the first point to make. And again, as HR professionals as well, we usually tend to make the mistake. We think we're very insular. HR work is HR work. No. HR work begins with HR. No. HR, begins with the business and it ends with the business. You're an enabler, you're an enablement function. And we must know that until we get these two imperatives right, there is no way we can be at the table to mainstream, these issues, retention, succession, and all of those other things. And the value, this is actually the true measure of the value we bring to the table as a function. And so what are some of the practical steps we can take to ensure that this is happening? Of course, it's a no-brainer. You must integrate succession with strategy. In other words, HR must be situated in the business. That connection must be there. We must build that synergy. And it is HR's responsibility, in fact, accountability, to facilitate that integration. Okay, so you don't go into management meetings, for example, and you don't have a line item on the agenda must be people. It must be retention, it must be succession as a norm. We've got to begin from there. And following through from that specifically, it is important that we begin to talk about developing our leadership pipelines very early. I mean, we all know the framework. Sometimes do you build, do you buy, do you borrow, all of those things we say. But on a sustainable basis, you must begin to think about building a robust pipeline very early, because what is key is actually sustainability. And so it is critical that as HR, you are driving this strategically longer term. Okay. And then practically as well, our talent review sessions, how robust is it? How consistent is it? How objective is it? A lot of HR people, we tend often to confuse talent review sessions with performance review sessions. They are not the same. They are very different, distinct things that we should begin to do. And is it really looking at, the evolving need? I mean, people say we live in a VUCA world today. And so it must begin to incorporate these, evolving needs of businesses, particularly because you are talking about the longer term sustainable imperatives for your business. That is what succession really is. And so at the heart of it is really business continuity. And it is, I mean, we must begin as HR to mainstream this to ensure that it gets the valid attention that it deserves, not just from HR, but from the business. Thank you.
Okay, just to recap, thank you so much, Chinedu. You have highlighted that the need to integrate succession plan into core strategy. First of all, HR, in fact, we all as HR, we must first understand the business, and it's really, really critical that we understand the business, because you really don't want to be championing something that you don't really understand the impact it's going to have on the organization. So really, you have to understand where the business is actually going to. And to do that, you have mentioned we must build and develop our leadership pipeline early enough. And also regularly, we need to have joint talent review, and this shared approach creates accountability and ensures business continuity, at the end of the day. Thank you so much, Chinedu, for that. So at this point, we'll be putting up a poll, and this is really just to get feelers, from you, the participants. We want to hear from you. We want to know some of the challenges that you have encountered. So please feel free. I want everybody to participate, in this poll. It's going to be put up now. So please, let's engage in the poll before we move into the second conversation of the webinar. Please confirm you can see the poll. Please confirm you can see it is up.
I can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so as we are doing that, we don't want to waste further time. So we're going to be going straight into the second conversation. And this part, we are going to be touching more, really on succession planning. And to start off, Innocent is going to be opening the conversation. And my question to you, Innocent, is in many companies, succession planning exists on paper, but actually fails in practice. From your experience, what does effective succession planning look like?
Thank you very much. Well, you said sometimes succession planning exists on paper, but not actually in practice. In fact, in some organizations, succession planning exists in the mind, just in the brain of the owner of the business. Yeah, it's just, particularly for owner-managed businesses, and in some non-owner managed businesses, succession planning is just in the head of a few people who are members of the inner caucus. But the truth is this, succession planning is a very structured, intentional, and ongoing framework. So it normally includes developing and agreeing the succession planning framework for the organization. A framework must be designed and it must be agreed that this is how we want to handle our succession planning issues. So within that, there is need to do what we call organizational readiness assessments. Some organizations are already not ready for succession planning. Yeah, because once people get to know that somebody's on the succession plan, the next thing is that people organize for him either to be sacked or to be thrown out of the system, particularly where the incumbent doesn't want anybody to be identified as a potential successor. So we need to first do what we call organizational readiness, assessments to see how open they are to it. And of course, we use that period to be able to help organizations understand the concept that it doesn't mean that if you have potential successors, then you are going to be thrown out to the job market. So after that, we design a customized succession planning framework for that organization. Succession planning framework for one organization might be different from another organization. That's why you cannot just import the succession planning framework for one organization and just import into yours. There's a need to work. There's a need to think through it and tinker it and see what applies, what would work within our own environment. The next thing is talent mapping. See, I said to you right now that this is a structured process. We call talent mapping, identifying critical roles within the organization. But I hope we understand that there is a difference between succession planning and replacement planning. Replacement planning is done for all roles within an organization. Succession planning is done for key positions, critical positions. And in any organization, the critical positions are normally about between 13 and 15% of the positions that exist within an organization. These are the people we do succession planning for. These roles, we do succession planning for them so that at no point in the future will individuals within the system, an organization will be in a situation where you don't have anybody to fill some key positions. It helps to ensure that you don't leave gap for key positions that are very critical to the business. So, like I said, talent mapping, you need to identify the critical roles, you need to identify the success profiles for the, and then you also need to identify potential, you also need to identify what I normally refer to as potential successors that are supposed to be winning. We do. Sorry, my power was about going down. So you identify number one, you identify critical roles, succession profiles for the roles, and of course you also identify the potential successors. Then after identifying the potential successors, you put them through what we call an assessment center, identification and assessment of identified potential successors. Now, in this assessment center, their direct bosses who may have recommended them will not be there. They are made available to external. They are people that are not their direct bosses. They get involved in the assessments. Why? So that you can guide against where line managers begin to position people just because of their relationship with them. So they attend an independent assessment center that will validate whether these guys are whether these individuals fit into the leadership pipeline profiles for the organization. Then, after you've done the assessments, in the assessment center, you know their strengths, you know their weaknesses, then you put in place a development plan. There is a tailored development plan, tailored growth plans for potential successors. And you then begin to invest in their development, also begin to make them available in acting opportunities and all that. And you begin to circulate them within the organization. So there must be a development plan, both in learning and in practice. And the next thing is transparent timelines. Everyone knows what is expected of them. What's expected and when. Everybody knows about it. So when people cannot move vertically, they can move horizontally. This is when, people that are supposed to be on your succession pool. And of course, there must be performance tracking. You use metrics to assess readiness. all manner of metrics are involved in assessing readiness. Also, part of the performance metrics that somebody is on the succession list doesn't mean the person must remain on the succession list for life. What keeps an individual on the succession list is meeting the criteria for being on the succession list. So every year you see people coming into the succession list, and every year people are dropping off the succession list. Yeah. So people are coming in and people are dropping off. People that can no longer sustain their performance, they drop out. And of course, every 6 months, it's important for the members of the leadership team, management team, to actually look at your succession list. What's the succession list right now? Who are those on the succession list in each of the critical roles? Are there those that have left? Because the plan is that at least you must have 2 or 3 people that you are developing for each of your critical positions. If one person leaves, the second person is there. If the second person leaves, there's a third person that is there. So you are constantly bringing in people into your succession planning list. And of course, people are dropping off, people are coming on. The only way to keep people on that list, on your succession planning list, is performance. They are performing and they are demonstrating the values that are valued, the values that are rewarded by the organization. And that is, so I said it's a structured thing. Well done. So in Nigeria, the best companies do this with discipline, not just when there is a retirement coming up. They do it, they are painstakingly, they painstakingly do it, and they deliberate about it, and they are intentional about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that powerful introduction, Innocent. Just to recap or buttress on some of the things that you said, effective succession planning is a discipline, and it's supposed to be a discipline, something that most every organization should take as very important to the business, and also is also an ongoing process. And some of the strategies that you said organizations can deploy is to involve, or rather design, frameworks on how succession plan will be carried out. First of all, you map out role, do mapping of key roles, identify successors, you develop the future leaders or the key talents through assessment centers, just to ascertain, their strengths and expertise. You also set, clear timelines, and also perform tracking progress. You don't want to just put people there and just, forget that there are people who are supposed to be monitoring. So constantly you have to, once you've gone through all of these processes, you also have to constantly, keep following to be sure that, the people that you have, in line to be successors are still within the business and really are still able to take on key roles, when the time arises. And essentially, you also said that Nigerian best companies really, for them, it's an inbuilt practice. It's not a last-minute plan or an afterthought. So we really, really need to have that, at the back of our mind. Thank you so much, Innocent, for that. Our next question is going to Chinedu. Speaking of implementation, how can leaders communicate succession plans without creating tension or office politics?
All right, fantastic. Thank you again for these questions, because this is also touching on a life situation we see, every day. We manage working with clients every day. And so, look, in my experience, 2 things are critical here. So, number one, it's really about the transparency of the process. There's no taking away from that. Transparency is key. And then secondly, the consistency of your process. So they both go hand in hand. It's like 2 sides to a coin. It must be seen to be transparent, and it must be consistent. And in terms of practical implications of this, some of the factors that drive this would be, for example, the criteria, for the process. It must be known. There's nothing hidden about it. It must be known to the last man in the business. Everybody knows. Okay, so, and when we are saying that it must be known, we are not talking about just names, the individuals, and no. We are talking about, the process and the specific requirements and factors that, you need to grow to, for example, fall into the talent list of that business. That's number one. And it's also important to emphasize also at this point, look, when you get into the talent pool or the talent list of a business, it's not a membership for life. Okay? Just the same way we talk about the process being dynamic and living, the outcomes of it as well are also dynamic and living. So you may get in this period, and by next year, maybe if you don't sustain those things that got you there, you go out. So that's best practice. Okay, so that's number one in terms of criteria. Number two, what are you emphasizing, as a business? And so the point to make really concerning this is the fact that the emphasis is not so much about replacement. It is really more about development, longer term, grow your people, because ultimately the essence of succession really is, leadership development over time. So the emphasis ought to be primarily around development. The third point I want to make, a lot of HR people, again, may not be happy about this point I am going to make now, but we must emphasize it. Look, the succession management process, though facilitated by HR, though governed by HR, is not owned by HR or ought not to be owned by HR. It should be owned by the line. The line owns it. They know their people. The functions own it. And so HR must involve them. And you involve them in the right, at the right capacity and, altitude. It is owned by the line. HR's responsibility is facilitation. It is governance, to ensure consistency and objectivity. It's, again, back to the point I made earlier. It is a business thing. It is not an HR thing. Okay, this is really, really critical. Sometimes HR people, it's almost like we are yanking off our powers. We don't want to let go, but the truth is, it is what it is. Okay, and it is best practice, to ensure that this is, a business fundamental, not an HR fundamental. And then finally, I'd like to make the point that, again, the way we position and sell this, to our people, to our talent, to the organization, it's really about sustainability. Okay, that's the point. It's about sustainability. It's not like you have a call somewhere, power play, these are the favored people. No, it's about long-term business sustainability. And I'll tell you that, look, in my experience, having managed and driven this even in global environments, what you would find if this is done properly, look, it doesn't threaten morale. Rather, it boosts morale. Thank you very much.
Okay, Chinedu, thank you so much. So to quickly touch on that, you said organizations should really focus on sharing the criteria for growth and development of the business, right? And not just, picking names or successors, right? Another point you noted is also presenting succession as developing people, for the future and not really replacing them. And also HR should understand that this is not really their thing. And so they should not feel like they have, the ultimate, right and power. It's an organizational thing. And also you noted that, at the end of the day, if done properly, or if this is done transparently, with everyone's involvement, it can actually build trust, rather than people having fear, within the organization. Thank you so much, Chinedu, for that. So at this point, we'll be going to our next question. Our next question is for Innocent. Innocent, Our next question, for you is to bring us to industry with deep-rooted leadership tradition. How can next generation leaders thrive without resistance or pushback from established leadership?
Thank you very much. In fact, your question is quite timely. For sectors with legacy leadership, like you say, the finance industry, the oil and gas, for instance, I mean, what are the consequences? How do you groom next generation leaders without resistance from the old guards? Well, what you need to do, really, or what HR needs to do is honest engagement and mutual respect. They are, honest engagement, mutual respect. And this is some of the things that we have seen work. Position succession as a preservation of legacy, not replacement. And that is one of the things that HR must know how to sell. Position succession as a preservation of legacy, not replacement. That's number one. Number two, involve senior leaders in mentoring. Make them part of the solutions that we are looking for. Number three, constantly highlight the benefits. When leaders see that succession planning protects their work, it helps to extend their work, not that it erases their work. They normally cooperate. And organizations also need to be very honest about this. Yeah, you don't need to set up individuals who are potential successors to set them up against the incumbent that is on the role. No. See, based on performance, your performance management system must be such that it's able to identify strong people, weak people in the system, and if there is consistent failures, you have created a plan that will help them to develop or to improve. And if that plans fail consistently, they know that they are supposed to be out of the system. So you just need to be honest engagement with them. Position succession as a preservation of legacy, not as replacement. Involve senior leaders in mentoring. In fact, you need senior leaders within the system to help mentor individuals, make them part of the solutions, make them part of the development plans, and please highlight the benefits. Let them see that succession planning protects their work, protects their work. It doesn't erase it. And of course, when they are clear about that, they will surely cooperate. But the earlier you start, the smoother the transition. If you don't start early enough, then you make the transition to become more complex. So people start settling much more and much more into their old path before you start talking to them about it. So I think that is the things that I believe that can be of help at this particular point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Innocent. Okay, so to note some of the key things that you have said, and really as HR, because we are champion of, change, we are champion of, this succession plan. When we are having this conversation, it's important to note that we position succession planning, as preserving the legacy of the business, right? We must also ensure that we constantly have, honest engagement or honest conversation, right? And then also we need to ensure that there is mutual respect, involve senior leaders, as mentors, constantly highlight the benefits as well, to everyone in the organization, and also the people that may feel a need, or that you see may actually push back on some of these strategies you're trying to put in place. Then also ensure as HR not to always set up your successors with incumbent leaders, because you actually need them to actually coach and mentor these successors that will be taking over later on. Essentially, or ultimately, succession plans need to actually start really early to build trust before transition can happen. So we need to take that into consideration. Thank you very much, Innocent, for that. Our next question is for Chinedu. We often talk about benefit of succession planning, but really, let's flip it. What are the biggest risks or the real dangers of not having a clear succession plan in place?
Fantastic, thanks. So, I mean, at the heart of that question really is business continuity. That's perhaps the single biggest risk associated with not having succession in place. And it can manifest in, several ways. So, for example, your business disruption, so it can stall, it can impact, business operations. Another way this can manifest that we see is talent drain. In other words, people just, your best hands especially, just leave, and that's not very, very good for any business. And closely associated with that as well is, what we refer to as institutional knowledge loss. In my experience as well, typically, your top talents, your best talents usually are they are the custodians of, your institutional knowledge, the repository of those things. They carry it, they know it, and whether you like it or not, that is, if harnessed properly, that is a factor for competitive advantage. And to just see that just walk through the door is not very good for any business. Ultimately, this can also manifest and create leadership vacuum, for your business. And so it is important that we see succession management as a key risk factor for every business. When you don't have it, it is a risk management issue. It is a risk management red flag. And so as HR people, we must be supporting our businesses to ensure that as much as possible, we have this structured process in place to ensure business continuity. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Chinedu. First of all, the first thing you noted is for us to know that succession planning is basically for continuity. So organizations, first of all, need to understand that succession plan or planning for successors in key roles is basically to help the business grow beyond its founders, really, and also beyond key roles. You have also noted that without one, companies risk operational disruption. They also lose talent, top talent at the end of the day. It also erases institutional knowledge, and the leadership also. Those positions face vacuums by the time these people leave without proper planning. Hence, as far as a business or organization is concerned, succession planning really isn't an option, isn't optional, rather, it's a risk prevention. So it's really, really important that organizations take that into consideration. Our next question is for Innocent. Innocent, for small businesses or startups running with lean team, forming succession planning can feel out of reach. What's a practical approach you think these organizations can take to prepare for leadership continuity?
Thank you very much. Very simple. Number one, put in place a succession planning system. Have a framework. That is the starting point. If you don't know how to do it as an organization, get specialists to help you put something in place. Here, there will be succession planning structures and tools that will be built for you. Now, with that, there will be competency framework. You need a competency framework that would help drive your leadership pipeline, individuals identification, and of course assessments and all that. You need that in place to help you also identify your talent. You need to create sufficient awareness in the system that there is one in place. And of course, be intentional and deliberate in ensuring that this is being implemented. This will be implemented so that people can see that the business does not only revolve around the individual. And this must be done very intentionally. Yeah. You need to then begin to cross-train employees. You don't have too many employees. The other time I said you need about 3 per key positions. In this situation, you may not have too many employees. So it simply means that you need to cross-train employees so that when there is a need, you could pick anyone to move into any of your key roles. Just like big businesses have what we call critical roles, small businesses also have critical roles, and you must be thinking about that regularly. Identify one backup, at least for each of your critical roles. I'm talking now in respect of small startups. Identify one backup for each of your critical roles. Document the key processes you will need to be able to do stuff, and of course, set up set up your monitoring, either monitoring by yourself or monitoring by you and some other people within the organization, but ensure that we are monitoring. Every 6 months, check the succession health of your business, and then be making compensatory efforts to ensure that you don't have too much gaps. You don't need a big HR team to plan for continuity. Please note this, and please just a clear intent and some structure is required on the part of every small and medium-scale enterprise. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Innocent, for that insight. First of all, to capture some of the things you said some of the approaches that we can take as HR and also for organization. First of all, is to have a framework. Start with cross-training. Have backups, for critical roles. Very, very critical. You must have backup because of the small size of the organization. It's really, really important that you need to identify those key roles such that, once you have, one key person resigning or leaving, you are not held bound. You have somebody to automatically fill into that role. Another thing we need to note is, to try and also document and implement processes. Also identify at least one backup for, every critical role. I've said that before. Then also set up monitoring, at least every 6 months, you have to monitor to be sure that you are heading towards the right direction. And essentially, HR, you don't need a very big HR department or HR team to actually put succession into planning. It's just the intent, and some structure put in place. Thank you very much, Innocent. Now, this question is also going to Innocent as well, and I need you to please share, how HCP, can assist organization in institutionalizing and implementing succession plan.
Well, thank you very much. How HCP helps organizations to institutionalize succession plan is very simple. Sometimes the political environment can be very tough within a system whereby organizations will require external help for objectivity in working with what they are doing. And that's why sometimes when organization brings us in, it's not that they don't know what they are doing, but they just want some objectivity to be put around it. So where we normally start, it's helping them to put in place their succession planning framework and development program. Here, we'll quickly help organizations to do what we call the readiness assessments. We help them. When somebody is doing readiness assessments from external, it has more credibility than when internal HR is doing it. In fact, internal HR won't hear too many things, but the external people will be able to get a lot of things. So to identify gaps in leadership pipeline, critical roles, vulnerabilities, retention risk and all that, and evaluate the HR maturity level and leadership development ecosystem within the organization. The next thing we do is to help design of the customized succession planning framework, where we design the fit-for-purpose framework tailored to the size of the organization, the complexity of the organization, the industry of the client that we're working for. Then we'll also help define the guiding principles, the governance structure, and the scope and the scope for the organization. We help them align the framework with corporate strategy, leadership competency models, and of course, diversity goals that they may want to pursue. That's the first thing we do in terms of the framework. Then we help them identify the critical roles and succession and success profiles. Here we help organizations in doing their role segmentations. And of course, we help map the business impact and difficulty to fill indexes for each of the roles that you are looking at. Then we then also help them come with success profile development. Each critical role has its own success profile which we need to bring out. See, so so that, because we use competency-based methodology in doing assessment, so you need to profile the job well. You need to integrate the technical skills, leadership competencies, behavioral traits, and potential indicators has to be extremely clear. And that is where, we come in to help organizations. We also help in talent identification and assessment, where we help you with talent pool mapping, and of course, competency-based assessments, where we use tools like leadership assessments, psychometric testing, 360-degree feedback session, development and assessment center design and implementation. And we make this one to be bespoke for your organization. And we help you measure potential readiness and of course, development needs. Those are the things we do. We help organizations do in the area of talent identification and assessment. And of course, development interventions from the assessment center that we help you implement, that which is specific to your organization. One of the things that comes out is the strength of your talent pool, of the individuals, of the potential successors. There are areas of development. And what we then do, based on the gap that we see, we help recommend development interventions for each of the individuals that you may want to take forward. So based on that, your individual development plans are developed. We translate the assessment data into actionable development plans for each potential successor. We also help align with potential career goals and organizational needs. Then we have a structured development program recommended for each of them. And those are the kind of things we do. And then if organization then want, we help them design and implement what we call leadership acceleration programs, cross-functional rotations, mentoring and coaching, executive coaching support that may be required, shadowing opportunities as well. We also help do that, and of course, action learning projects that are relevant. And the other thing we have to do is the governance and integration. For your succession planning system, there is need for governance. So we help you put in place succession planning governance model. We also help put in place integration with HR processes, existing HR processes, your performance, and we help to embed it into your performance management system, talent review circles, workforce planning, and your learning and development. We help do that integration and work with you. And of course, monitoring and evaluation and reporting. We help come up with your succession planning metrics and KPIs, what you need to be able to track what you are doing, what are the benchmark index, what is the readiness ratio, what is the internal fill rate for all the critical roles, what is the succession turnover rate that is going on. We work with HR to be able to help HR to be able to support management in that regard. Then we also try to do what we call succession planning dashboards for you. We develop interactive dashboard for leadership visibility and general periodic reports for ESCO and board reviews. Like I said, 6 months, there is need for a review. End of 12 months, there's need for review. The relevant data that management needs to be able to do that review, we help HR work to ensure that it's available. And last but not the least is the advisory and change management support. Change management and stakeholder engagement is important. So we help drive cultural adoption and mindset shift. We also help facilitate communication plans and workshops with senior leadership within the organization. And one of the other things we also do a lot is board and executive advisory. We advise on CEO and of course, executive succession protocols. We also help align board oversight with succession risks and business continuity strategies. So those are the kind of things we do. So in terms of deliverables that we then bring to organizations we support, succession planning framework document, succession profile templates for critical roles, high potential talent mapping reports regularly, assessment center reports and development plans, leadership pipeline development strategy, we help you come up with it. Then we also help organizations do their succession dashboards and tracking tools, governance structures and process manuals. And last but not the least, we also help do executive succession policy and board toolkit. So that's how HCP helps organizations in their to be able to help the institutionalizing succession planning and also help in implementation of same. Thank you very much. We can't hear you. We can't hear
Uche,
you.
I think you're muted if you're speaking.
Sorry.
You are muted.
Yes. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Innocence. That was really well articulated. At this point, I want to urge participants, please, at this point, please, let's start putting our questions in the Q&A slot. Let's start putting our Q&A, our question is Q&A slot. We are moving on to the last question now. After the last question, then we can take questions from participants. So please, let's start putting our questions right now. Okay, so our final question for our panelists, and this response I would like to hear from both Innocent and Chinedu, but Chinedu will go first, right? It says, if Nigerian business leaders could make just one mind shift to protect their workforce future, what would that be?
Thank you very much for that question. I think that it is critical that leaders view succession management as central to business continuity. It is central to long-term sustainability of their respective businesses. And to be honest, it is an existential issue. And as HR people, it is our role to sort of mainstream this and ensure that it is getting the attention it requires, not just as an HR agenda, but a business agenda, so that longer term we can begin to have businesses go past their founders. All of the big multinationals you hear today were actually started by individuals somewhere, and they've grown to. So that for me would be, if you like, the message to business leaders in terms of shifting mindsets. This is really critical. It is existential, and it must be mainstreamed as a business agenda and driven as such. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Innocent, what do you have to say?
Well, one of the mindset shift that I would like to happen that all leaders in Nigeria must embrace is to future-proof their workforce. Please stop treating people just as labor. Treat them as partners in building the future. Invest in them like you would invest in systems or like you would invest in equipment. And that's one area where there has been a big challenge. A lot of organizations are willing to spend billions on the technology, and they are unwilling to spend 1% of that on development. So that's why I said, stop treating people as just labor. Treat them as partners in building the future. Invest in them like you would invest in systems and equipment. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chinedu and Innocent, for this sum up. So essentially, organizations and HR professionals should be more proactive and not reactive. We also need to build leadership pipeline before you need them, and we also need to treat people as partners and not just labor. And there's one final thing Innocent said, which is really profound. He says you really need to invest in your people the way you would invest in your systems and your infrastructure. That's really, really profound. Thank you so much. We have really come to the end of our panel discussion. So at this point, we'll be taking questions. Okay, so let me just look through the Q&A to see if there are questions for us. Okay, so we have two questions here. The first question says, what are your views on external successors outside the organization's current pipeline? Should I take both questions so we just you can answer them at the same time? The second question is, how do you handle employees not chosen as successors so they don't feel resentful or want to leave? Right. I hope you got that question.
Yeah.
Innocent, please. Can you hear me?
Okay. Just the first question again.
Question. Let me take the first question again. The first question says, what are your views on external successors outside the organization's current pipeline?
Okay, there are times when organizations may look outside for external successors, particularly if the talent pool is very weak. I do not believe in organizations promoting an individual into key positions when they don't have the competencies to function in that role, So that's why we need to do these things early. But in a situation where you have looked through the entire organization and the skills, it then also depends on the sensitivity of the role and the criticality of the role to the business. There is not only senior level roles that are key positions, there are also lower level positions that are key positions to the business. They are for key positions. Now, if you find out that you on the succession pool you don't have, then you can go. If you don't have a succession planning system in place, probably that's what you are going to be doing. But if you have a very strong succession planning framework in place, you would have identified. But however, there are times when those guys are no longer available. Maybe the person has left the organization, or the people have left the organization. Then you can go outside and bring it. So it's fine. But before you go out, please try as much as possible to be sure that, in all honesty, we don't have people that can fill those roles or not. And also, you also need to settle this question that, can I possibly bring somebody, maybe the best of all the people that are available? And is the management prepared to invest in their development within 3 years? Because you can also take that decision and say, okay, the person comes in, we begin to train him, or we ask the person to start working in acting capacity with the view that, we have put you on a development plan. If you fit into it in the next 3 years, you become it. You then become substantive person. Those conversations can hold. So I think that's my response to that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Innocent. Our time is fast spent. So we have just two questions. There's one in the chat box. I'll be taking that question and then an additional question, and that will be all for today. Our second question is, how do you handle employee not chosen as successor so they don't feel resentful or want to leave? I don't know, Chinedu, can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So look, it's not so much about being chosen as it is about, the process being transparent and consistent. So when employees see the transparency and the consistency of the process, and I had made the point earlier that it is critical that your criteria from the get-go, even before the process, are known. Okay, so it's not so much about being chosen, and then your value proposition as well as an employer is also critical. And we know we had made the point about succession management being developmental in nature. That's important. You don't also that norm about it being developmental in nature. It should not be closed to those who are outside your talent pool as well. So it should be like an organization-wide norm across board. And we had made the point earlier about the fact that you're in a talent pool today doesn't mean you can't drop out tomorrow. And the fact that you are not in a talent pool today doesn't mean you can't get in tomorrow. So provided that all of these things are properly driven and implemented, I mean, it becomes, in my experience, it actually becomes a spur to drive others who may not be in there today to ensure that they are doing all they can to get in there tomorrow. So at the end of the day, it is in the implementation and the intent and the transparency that guides that implementation that matters.
Okay, thank you very much, Chinedu. So very quickly, I'll be taking the last question. And it says, how do you guide your top talent management not to be biased in this succession planning? That is picking the deserving candidates. I don't know if you got that question. Chairman, please, can you speak to that?
Yeah, what you simply do to guide against bias is, after you have allowed line managers to identify potential successors, at least for each of the critical roles, minimum of 3 people must be suggested, or even 4 or 5 must be suggested. Then move everybody into a development and assessment center. Let everybody go through that development and assessment center. And of course, that development and assessment center will end up with results, good report that you send. And of course, the report that is sent, management then works on that report and then implement the things that have been so recommended. So, I mean, if you are very clear on the very criteria, then what HR can do is to just work with management to be sure that they are following the criteria that have been sent. And this is now where a lot of emotional intelligence and stakeholder management comes in on the part of HR. You must constantly be relating with the MD. You need to have those conversations with the MD before you have conversations with the bigger team, to help him understand, I mean, what the analysis is like, what the results, the outcome is like. Because I tell you, there are some line managers that they just want, the successors they want is anybody that can help cover their back. And those are the people that they will keep putting forward. So that is the reason why each person needs to submit about 5 people. Let them go through an independent assessment and development center and let the system then pick them out. Don't forget that when they are coming to the assessment center, you are assessing them for this, I mean, the display of behaviors that mirror, I mean, your leadership competencies, your behavioral competencies. You're also assessing them in the area of personal attributes. See, based on the competency framework that you have developed for that role. So if they've signed off on the competency framework, they've signed off on the proficiency level that each of the competencies ought to be, then you take them through an assessment center that has been built to help assess those competencies. And of course, when you are running the assessment center, ensure that you have relevant subject matter experts whose judgment the organization would respect. And once that is done, you've brought in a lot of objectivity, and you can help to guide against too much bias on the part of top management. But however, if top management decides to say this is the direction they want to go, after all the support you've provided, please let them go the way they want to go. Yeah, it's actually owned by executive management. HR only provides that guided support, because there are certain things that management may know that HR may not know for identifying to go in a particular direction. You just do your best as HR person, as an HR function, and please allow the system, allow top management, the members of the management team to take their final decision and run with it.
Okay, thank you so much, Innocent, for that response. I hope that the responses given so far for those questions have been able to, or rather the participants that asked the questions are satisfied with those responses. Thank you so much, Chinedu. We've actually come to the end of our panel discussion today. At this point, we'll be putting up the poll results so we can see responses from our participants. Would you please, can you put up the responses? Would you? Are you there? Okay. Wow. Okay, so from the interactive poll that we put up earlier, okay, for the first question, which is what is your biggest challenge in keeping top talents? The highest responses we got here is about 35%, which is limited budgets and compensation competitiveness. Okay. For the second question, it says, how prepared is your organization if a key leader resigns today? And the highest responses we got is about 42%. And it says we have informal backups, but nothing documented. Interesting. Okay, and the third question says, what is the most underrated reason people stay long term in your organization? And the highest response we got here is work-life balance and flexible structure. And this is about 31%. The fourth question says, what's your organization's top priority when it comes to talent management? And the highest response here is about 42%, which is improve employee retention. That's interesting to know. Okay, thank you so much, everyone, for participating in this poll. We have taken note of all the feedbacks and we will be sure to really act on it. In the meantime, if you require support or need further details on the solutions that we offer, please visit our website on www.hcp-ng.com for more information. If you also check in the chat box, you will see that our details have been dropped there as well. So please feel free to reach out. If you can send, resend the details again so people can take a screenshot or copy it out somewhere. Please just do that. We've come to the end of our webinar today, and I want to say a very, very big thank you to our incredible panelists, for sharing your invaluable insights and experience. It was truly an enlightening and inspiring session. I really, really learned a lot from this. To our audience, this would not have been possible really without you. Thank you so, so much for your engagement, your continued commitment to growth, and for taking out time out of your busy schedule to be part of this webinar. We really do not take it for granted. So we hope you found today's conversation impactful, right? We look forward to welcoming you to the next episode. Until then, please let's keep pushing boundaries. Thank you and see you soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Can you give it voice? The volume, the advert, no voice.
There's a technical issue behind the back end. That's why there's no voice.